Welcome everyone to the Master Secrets. And today we have got one of my most favorite people on the whole planet. He has got the most positive attitude. He has got the most incredible art, and he is one of the biggest dogs in our industry. Cesar Santos, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Catherine. What a pleasure to talk to you again.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, yeah. So when did you move back to Florence?
About a year ago, almost exact.
And what made you decide to make that move?
We were fine in Miami, and then we wanted to change our lives. We didn't know what to do, if I needed a bigger studio, if I needed to move out. I didn't know what to do. So we took a van, prepared it as a camper van, and we lived for 6 months outside of my house in Miami, traveling through the States in the middle of the pandemic. I like to go opposite to what things tell me to do. So I'm like, if I should stay home, no, what if I just travel around? So I went, and after that, I didn't miss anything that I had in Miami. I didn't miss my house. I didn't miss anything, only the collection, the art collection. And then after 6 months on the road, we spoke and talked to my wife, and we decided to move to Florence. And then we just drove back, sold everything, and moved here.
Oh, so what's that look like for an artist? I mean, maybe even though you sold everything, you've got supplies, you've got brushes, you've got canvases. What's that look like for an artist to make a move like that?
I think we are made to do that. I think it feels good. If you take away the little pieces of being uncomfortable through the changes, but the excitement. I mean, coming here, I knew I was going to be surrounded by art, the art that I love, and quick, I can walk to museums and do this. So in my mind was just like a must do. And so, yeah, it felt smooth, even though there were a lot of things to take care of.
And where are you living in Florence?
I'm living right in the center, 2 blocks from Dante's house, between the Duomo and the main palace of the Signoria here.
And are you teaching there?
I haven't had a time to teach. I just do my YouTube videos and I share my knowledge a little bit like that, but not in class settings. I haven't been in touch with any of the academies because I studied here in 2005 and 6. But I came back with a mind of being involved in my own world. And so I haven't been in touch with any of the academies or giving classes, no.
Now, you're doing your YouTube podcast, and what's that looking like for you? Do you have a team behind you that helps you get all of the videos up and takes care of all of that stuff for you?
It's just me and my wife. I always like to be small, like stay private. And so my wife learned how to edit and film. And when we started this journey of video making, she completely loved it. She studied communication before, but she didn't know what to do exactly with my career. But we lived together, and now when she started doing that, it became really nice, like solid expression, because then she can do her art and it has to do with mine, so it's a pretty thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. So you do have support. I mean, it's you and your wife as a team working together. And
Yeah.
um, the thing that I love now is that even though you're in Florence, there are people here in the US that can still study with you. They can
Yeah.
still learn from you. And
Yeah,
that's absolutely amazing.
yeah, the world just became super flat, super just local, and you can act like a small town store and have access to the world. That's true. I mean, a lot of my sales, when I paint, I'm commissions or my own paintings that I sell, a lot of goes back to America too. I have a lot of collectors there or different places. So yeah.
Well, having that's where I met you actually was in Florence. So, having been there, I do understand that things move at a different speed in Italy than they do in the US. And are you finding that to be something really good for your art, for your mind? Is that something that's really resonating with you?
Yes, I think definitely I feel the difference, but I don't have cars and I got rid of a lot of the things that used to take my time. In Miami, I was very on point with everything. I produce a lot and here too, but it's I think we still have 24 hours everywhere in the world. I don't know what you're saying. I think here people don't feel the pressure because they know tomorrow is going to be a new day, and there is not the sense of never-ending competition that is in America. There is in America this feeling that I had too, and it was stressing me out because I'm like willing to work and willing to produce, but the whole thing is pushes you infinitely. And here it's true that we have time to say, okay, life is supposed to also encompass the non-time part of it, the timeless part, which is like that calm thinking, like not having to rush everything. Yeah.
I've said this to you before. You are Michelangelo reincarnate. You have that look. You've got the art. You've got the drive that Michelangelo had. So you're there in your roots.
It's funny. Yeah, I think we all have a little bit of everybody, and it's cool to see that if you want to do something and you're free to move there and develop it, it's possible. And I think everybody should realize that you know everybody is just one person at the end.
Okay, so who are some of your favorite artists to collect?
Some of them have no signature. I have different things because I'm not like my budget is not unlimited. So then I find stuff that are unique, and I think I find something that the artist did. Most of these pieces are from the 19th century. So when I go to antique markets or stuff, I'm looking around, and in time you build a collection of things that I find that I can afford. So I have different things from French 19th century to Italian to different.
I want to get to the business of art and how it is that you're doing that. Are you offering online classes, workshops, so that people are able to really connect with you? Because you've got a wealth of classical knowledge that you have taken and turned that on its side and done something amazing and really fun with your art. It screams creativity.
Yeah, my income comes from selling paintings, so I haven't focused as much on classes because it's a lot of energy for my pleasure. Like I love creating and thinking about producing art, and so that takes most of my time. I do have a website um, with courses that we record, and it's about like an hour 2 hours, and then it's a $35 and they can see me teaching there. But I haven't uploaded in over a year videos there, but they still make me money. I mean, it's good, but my focus and my intention is to connect to collectors and projects, artistic projects, something that I can have fun, because at the end of the day, I'm living this life, and I don't know, I want to make sure that I express it as much as I can, because that's what we are here for. And if we go too safe, too fast, I feel that I might be missing a little bit of the risk and the benefits that risk can give me. And it has paid off. Like every time I'm uncomfortable, better ideas come or better opportunities show up than if I say, I'm going to do this and stay here kind of happy. I'm always kind of looking for an adventure.
So you're in the flow. You're looking for the flow,
Mhm,
and
mhm, mhm.
and how that really fits into your life and how it makes you feel, right?
Yeah, and I think it's funny because this flow might feel personal, but I think it is something that exists in nature. It's like ecology. One thing is to the other, and so I believe if I do that, other people from same species will feel that vibration and will attend to it and will try to also get it as a benefit. And I'm thinking that that's how things are. That's why suddenly you're connected with the right person all the time. You find the right people, they find the right love. And I think if I'm sensitive to that, that's the way the order moves and should go. So I'm into that more.
So what kind of connections have you made, art connections, there in Florence? Or are you and your wife just kind of hunkered down and you're working? Because, you know, you moved at a very interesting time in history. And what did that look like for you over in Italy?
Um, we've been just working here, focusing on preparing the whole place and making sure that the environment is beneficial for my thoughts to be able to flourish. And I have been able to be in touch with people that invite me to things that I think are gonna be useful. So I pay attention to that a lot. If I get an invitation from something that I know is gonna be a distraction or is gonna be like more effort and no benefits or something like that, but that's intuition. But if I'm interested in something and I get invited, then I go there and do my best. So I've been in touch with some artistic, people here. I was recently collaborated with Shailene. Is a Russian artist, and she does digital and virtual art. And together we work because I'm more like traditional. So I learned so much with her, and also going to museum openings and meeting directors of museums or talking about NFTs and all this other stuff, just as a nice nutrition to my career. So I'm not either open up to meet as much people as possible or closing myself down. I'm trying to find like enough balance.
So that makes me ask, Caesar, do you meditate? Is that something that's important to you in your daily life to keep you balanced?
I never did it, but I've studied it so much, and I think that the way to meditate correctly is to work with effort and enthusiasm. So the moment you're working or living or eating, and you're present there, I think that's more useful. Because if I take a break to be like empty, which is nice to do, like to meditate or try to be clean, but I believe that could be a vacation, that could be like a moment of niceness, and then you go back to the craziness, then it was useless. So I'm trying to see how I force myself to be in a flow as I work or as I do anything, and then I find everything moving like together nicely, rather than friction.
So you're one of the most positive people I've ever met in my entire life. In fact, I put you at the top of the list. You are the most positive person that I've ever met. How did you come to that attitude, and how do you continue to keep that enthusiasm and all of that positiveness going in yourself? Because sometimes it's got to
Because
be hard, right?
Yes, but I see it everywhere. I believe that the moments we are not positive is ourselves fighting against nature. Because I think in nature, even a hurricane, even something that comes as an anomaly to break things down or to change things up, they come with a certain positivity. And we can choose. So if we have a limited amount of time, why focus on anything negative if it also has a positive side that we can take advantage of and use for the future. So as soon as you put something negative in front of me, I'll try to see how we can use it for the best, for the better. If it's painful, it's fine. Nature doesn't care if things are painful or not. The important thing is to go through the lesson. And so as soon as I'm thinking of the lesson and looking at the positivity, then the whole thing changes and it becomes like a good experience. I don't believe there's negativity in the world. Only people decide to live it.
Do you find that artists are more freedom seeking, or are they susceptible to the fear?
It could be a combination. I think artists are vulnerable because we are creative people. We are thinking of changes. We are looking, making connections that might make sense to people or not, but we see the connection. And sometimes those connections tend to connect with other people, but sometimes it's only inside. And if we don't notice those things, we can be affected by the lack of attention to our work. So I always recommend, like, tell students to focus on their development and not on the reception, because the reception will happen if they connect with themselves. You cannot force a connection. You have to connect, and then it reflects. Like, people will see it happening and then want to be part of that, more than I have a strategy, or I'm going to paint this and it should, or I want freedom. I don't know. I just think everybody is an artist. Every time we do something, we do it with an imagination in our heads. Like, there is a part of something that it has to, like, it could be a glass of water, and it could also be a glass of water that has all these transparencies, all this stuff. And if we become playful with our minds, then we take everything and make it into a beautiful fantasy. And I think that's the type of freedom that we all have. I think everybody's free to choose.
Well, so I want to, I want to dive deep into your positiveness, because it is infectious. I know that when we're done with this call, you have inspired and it changed my whole day. You have just changed my whole day just by
You too.
your amazing presence, and I consider myself a positive person. I always looking for the good, but you're like positive on steroids, and is that something that comes natural to you, or is it something that you have to put effort into? Because you grew up in a place that was really restrictive, and until you got to the US, life was completely different. So
Yeah.
especially knowing some of your background, it makes me that much more interested.
That's probably why it's hard to tell how people feel inside, uh, outside of me. Since I was a kid, I had a big smile every time I saw someone, or a stranger, anything. My mom, everybody laughed at me because of that. They're like, when you see Caesar, he just smiles and opens up, like, what's going on? And I think that's probably something I was born with. I wouldn't know. I mean, but I think everybody has a smile. I don't know if there are things that you put in your brain that blocks that smile, and then that has to be taken away. But yeah, for me, it came easy. Like, my sister was a little bit more introverted, less like open and positive, and some people are like that. Like, things can affect them differently. All the hardships I've had, I took them as a fun thing. Even when I was boxing, or getting my face broken, or getting it's like we are living. Like, since we are living, we are more like organic things. We shouldn't take things more serious than just being living. Like, that is the seriousness of it. Just experiencing whatever comes, whatever we have around us. And that's why I think it's a problem nowadays. Like, I lived before the internet, before the phones, and now seeing everyone carrying a machine that almost like think for them. And if it shows you depressive things, it affects your mood, because we are so vulnerable. So I believe, like, the first thing to be positive is to surround yourself as much as possible with things that you find positive. And then when intruders come, you see them as intruders, as tourists or something, but you don't take them seriously. So I don't know, playing around like that. I love thinking about stuff like this. But
Oh, I'm interested in your practice, because there are things that come at us all the time, and finding that kernel of positivity in something really negative. Do you ever get caught up in that, and you're suddenly okay, I got to step back from this and re-examine myself and my response to this?
Yes, yes, yes. That's my whole journey. Like when I see myself falling into a trap, I step back immediately and I do that. I say, okay, that's fine, but let's go again. So instead of saying, oh, it's a problem and I have to carry it now, I can always stop and start again. So that's a beautiful thing you mentioned, because as soon as you realize something, you can decide to take it or not. Sometimes something happens and it surprises you. So it's true. We are, since we're vulnerable, we become part of the thing. But as soon as we realize it, we can stop it. And I see many people that prefer to keep going with that momentum, even if it's not beneficial. I don't know why.
How's business? How is your business affected by your attitude?
It's one thing. I started recently actually, believing that everything is like we have to eat, breathe, sell, paint, cry, happy, sad. Like all this stuff is part of the whole. And for business, I realized that as soon as I become more integrated in myself, in my actions, things show up. It's funny, it's weird how we don't know where, if we are distracted, we might think it's a coincidence, or we might not appreciate when things come. Things that we look at is because we had inside ourselves a system of projection, and then we pick. So that's why it's very important to start with a clean, like a center projection. So then nothing matters unless you want it to matter. um, and so it's just like that. Like as soon as I see some bad business, I wouldn't do it because I know it doesn't feel right. So I'm like, okay, it's not for me. Instead of thinking, oh, I need to take it because we don't know when tomorrow. I don't think like that, and it has worked. It's just doing the things that you really like. If not, it's not worth it, for nothing. But it's hard to do it because the mentality that I learned in in America was to always take it and always move. It's more like you separated from the rest, trying to conquer stuff. And that's what I thought before life was. Instead of you moving inside your life and then things come to you. Because in an
Ooh.
ecosystem, that's how animals find the food at the right time, or the water, or the love. They're not like, it looks like they're looking for it, but it's very specific. So you're looking very specific things, and it's plenty out there.
So you talk a lot about nature and how we fit into that ecosystem. Is that something that you study? Is it something that you're interested in? Is the natural world and the animals' responses to their environment?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, and I think I see all that through psychology, because if we are a type of animal that also think, and our thoughts make us act, then it's very important that we separate our animal part from our human thinking part, and see how when we want some pleasure, is an animal inside of us naturally asking for it. But if we act on it, it could create problems, because animals don't think, so they can do it in harmony. But humans, when they act animalistic, since other humans are thinking too and they see you do that, it could be a separation, because nobody wants to be with a wild animal next to them. So it's good to think more than the animal, than the natural. So then, if I read a lot of psychology and nature, and I play with the game of what animals do versus what people do, and in history, I think it's a beautiful way to be able to understand things, because then when we talk about any subject, other people talked about it in depth, other writers. So definitely it's good to read and learn from others. Yeah.
So what are some of the psychology books, or what are some of the books that it is that draw your attention and help you more fully understand what your what is
Yeah.
going to be best for you, and how to read people, right? I mean, that's part of the psychology, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, reading people is tricky because I'm not like, I mean, I don't practice psychology. So my goal is not to read people or try to fix them. And it's hard. It's always when the beautiful thing is that when we try to read people, it's actually us reading ourselves. And then if we everything we think about or anything outside of us, if we realize that's part of us, then you can get to understand ourselves better, because that is like an automatic way to know who you are is by what you think of other people. And so for instance, so then that helps a lot, because if you think you're separated and what you're thinking is actually outside, you could be lost because you could be affected and not know and think it's outside, like, is that a good strategy?
Well, one of the sayings that I coined several years ago is that we are prisoners of our own thinking. However it is that we think
Beautiful.
is what we are going to project. It's what we're going to draw into ourselves, and it's breaking those barriers, because there's and this is very dangerous ground to be treading, but there's no right, no wrong. There's no one way to live a life. There's billions of people and there's billions of different ways to do it, right? So
Mhm.
we become prisoners of our own thinking.
No,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And each person has to decide, because it's funny, the idea of not right or wrong is nice to have, but sometimes we do feel that if we do something, we don't like results, or if we do something else, we like the results. So in my life, I've been able to say, okay, what are the good things that I can think of that benefit my life? And then I see myself like maybe staying healthy or enthusiastically through a life. So I believe there's something weird about our time now compared to maybe before when they had the church. And I think the church helped a lot of people think better. And the moment of prayer in the church is more like orienting a person that has to deal with all these mental things and focus them in the best possible way. And I thought that was the purpose of the church. That is maybe the only thing that I think is the best benefit. um, but now we don't have that. And then now since we're by default religious, meaning we imagine things in our mind that don't exist. And that's the only way that humans can live. So then all the stuff that we have, all this electronics and all this stuff is distracting ourselves from finding that center that we have, and from selecting the things that are going to be good for our lives. And so I spend a lot of time trying to be aware and thinking of, and be affected by that. So then I don't have to. If I could go to the church and try to look at sculptures or paintings, that's good. That's good for the thoughts, or in nature.
And how important is your spiritual life to your positiveness?
Is the same. It's just the willingness to work with your species in the best possible way. That's what I want to do. And I also want to bring out the best thing, the best talent that people have when I'm dealing with them. So I don't want to get the worst of anybody, and I don't want to separate myself to do the worst for the people around me. So then as soon as I have that in mind, even living in the van, if I needed to talk to someone because I needed something, of course, I'm just dealing with that moment. I'm trying to get the best and giving my best. So I think it's pretty simple. It's just that we have been distracted. If we spend a lot of time with the politicians and the leaders, because we're supposed to have leaders, but leaders that are good examples. Before, all the saints had like great qualities. And but now we have saints that are like contemporary, I guess they're kind of saints because people go to their concerts or to their lectures and act like if it's a worshiping moment. And but then the result doesn't last or the influence is negative. And I think that's a horrible way to be spiritual.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how important is the news to your life?
Just to know how we are kind of guiding ourselves, but it's not very important. I take it as a funny cartoon. That's why when the whole disease came, I'm like, the first thing I need to do is find someone sick and get it. So I'm done with it. And then after that, it's like, okay, good. So then there's no other fear. And the fear was trying to get in my mind because everybody was trying to tell everybody else uh, about the news of to be fearful and separate yourself from people. And I thought that was not funny. I don't like that. So then, yeah, I connected some other way.
Cesar, when I mean, I think it's so important how positive you are. And I really want to share that practice that you have. It's a mindfulness that you have. It's an awareness. It's a decision that you make. And I think that it might be a decision that you have to make every day and maybe multiple times a
Yes,
day.
yes, yes. But then it becomes not, because the thing is like we practice painting and it takes years to practice. Like first the pencil maybe drops from your hand or then you don't control the line how you want it. So anything takes time. And also and the brain is so complex and our thoughts are so complex that if we're gonna have to live with them for the rest of our lives, it's better to observe them and to say, what am I thinking that is bad or this? And then in time you get better. So maybe when sometime happens, it doesn't have to be like a crazy conflict all the time or readjusting your mind. Then it's more like flow. You detect it when you're about to do it, when you're about to get into something you don't want, and then you stop it there before it grows. But most of us didn't learn that in school, and by the time we find out there is a problem, it's like this is like so deep already that we started with that, and then it's too hard to fix it right at the end when you realize it when it's too bad. It's better to predict it than to know where things are going because everything is a cause and effect. And if you're creating something that are giving you bad results, it's the doing that needs to change, not the results. Um, so it's kind of logical. That's why I like nature because it's like instant. Nature is happens one after the other. You know, it's like cause and effect like that. Yeah.
So if somebody is struggling with their art, how does their mindset affect uh, the ability to get to that next level of development?
I think the mindset is what is affecting the art. So so the mindset has to be fixed before because I believe now like the schools are confusing everybody and all the information is confusing. But if you have a relationship to what you are looking at, and we are visual artists, if we don't develop our vision, and it's funny to know that not everybody sees the same things. I mean, and even in yourself, you can change the way you see things too. And if that is the case, then it's important for visual artists to develop a relationship to what they're seeing that they want to paint. And if that happens, everything else is extra because all you need is to ask the thing that you imagine or the thing that you're looking at, which is an image too. Everything is imagined, actually. If you're looking at something that you identify, ask what colors, what forms does it have? What color can render it best? What is the shape, you know? And we are so scientific nowadays, and the camera is probably one of the dumbest invention. I mean, I use it, but it's very shallow. The camera made us believe that things are objects that are like impressions. And then like constellations are are flat instead of thinking of stars being a different distance. So when we are looking at things, that's the answer to do better art, I believe. It's just for you to be honest with what you're looking at. And that is the level that everybody's gonna express that at the level that they want to, that they can. And in time, if you look deeper, you see better things, you see better rhythms. And when you distort reality in order to make it the way you saw it or the way you like seeing it, then that distortion becomes valuable to others. Like Van Gogh's vision versus Rembrandt's vision versus Michelangelo. Every artist didn't do a machine copy of things. That's why our goal to learn how to paint better became photographic oriented, like perfection. But none of the periods of Egypt or cave paintings or even modern art is the example of that confusion, of not being able to know what you're seeing. So you think we kind of express things almost like a neurosis. But the more we pay attention to things, I think that distortion is beautiful, and I'm more open to that. I'm learning that now, like recently, have gotten to get that a little bit better.
You know, that's very profound, because we do paint as we see, and developing that eye is really critical and important. What are some of the things that an artist can do to help clarify that vision, and how, when they are clarifying that vision, does it feed into that positiveness?
I think definitely the positiveness will come out of that, because if we look at anything like a trunk of a tree or something that someone likes to look at, like clouds or I don't know, anything. If you start looking for patterns, like, oh, that's going this way. What is it pointing at? Oh, I don't know, a knot here. And then that looks like this thing over here. And when you start analyzing, you can be almost like meditating, even looking at one little thing, because it has so many things. It's like an edge with a highlight. Oh, what is the highlight doing? And how bright it is. So all this conversation happens in your mind before working. And of course, that's going to be in harmony with life, because that's what we are, visual people. I mean, creatures. And the way we find these patterns, I think that's how animals can select stuff too, and they go for what they need. But it's just basically patterns. Yeah, as visual artists, if we spend time looking and then spend time technically seeing how we can manage the tools to produce those patterns, I think that's a good journey to live. Everything else is going to be extra. And if that's the main focus, that's enough, things will come to you.